Welcome to the Four Visions Market Podcast, a space built on the principles of integrity and reciprocity. Together, we will engage in thought-provoking conversations about plant medicines, why these plants are coming out of the rainforest, jungles, and mountains after thousands of years, and what it means to be in right relationship with the ancestral wisdom cultures and guardians of these traditions. I'm your host, Mariah, founder and director of Four Visions Market. This podcast is the natural evolution in our commitment to providing you, our tribe, with incredible resources to support you on your healing journey through plant medicines. Welcome home. Good rising and welcome back, Four Visions family. Today on the show, we have Alyson Charles, a revered shaman, seer, and best-selling author. She is devoted to being in service by living the call of inner wisdom, energy medicine, and shamanic practices she has mastered through her studies with spiritual teachers, both of and beyond this world. She leads global talks, courses, and events to reconnect people to their fullest divine power through sacred practices. Alison is host of internationally acclaimed Ceremony Circle podcast and best-selling author of Animal Power. Alyson's Power Animal Shamanic Journey was named a top meditation to try by the Oprah magazine, and she has been called a leading shaman for expanding others into their full gifts and power, and a full-fledged guide into your psyche by Forbes. Alison was resident energy guru for the world's top wellness platform and collaborates with media outlets including the New York Times, HBO, Well and Good, Nylon, Mind Body Green, Elle, and Self. And she graciously sat down with us today to share a really beautiful episode all about animal medicine that I know you are going to love. We talk about the jaguar, the bear, the frog, the deer, the vulture, the owl, the bat, and more. We discuss how to deepen with your animal totems and how to embrace the teachings that the power animals have for us. This was a super fun conversation diving into the animal kingdom. And at the end, Alison shares a really beautiful channeling with us, bringing in the medicines of the whale and the giraffe. I hope you enjoy as much as I did. Thanks for tuning in. This episode is brought to you by Magic Fund Amazon. Four Visions Market is proud to be in partnership with Magic Fund, a nonprofit organization that works as a movement for Amazonian growth and indigenous cultures. Magic Fund focuses primarily in the Putumayo region of the Colombian Amazon, spearheading various initiatives that focus on the preservation of indigenous culture, land, and the health of the traditional peoples that live there. Magic Fund recently launched a new campaign that is called Planting Magic. Through this initiative, we are currently fundraising to be able to steward 50 hectares of land in the Colombian Amazon in order to plant and reforest the land with native endangered medicinal plant species. We believe that these sacred plants, if conserved and protected, can bring forth healing for all of humanity in the generations to come. Like many places in the world, the Amazon is under constant threat of encroachment. 17% of the Amazon rainforest has been lost in the last 50 years. An increased interest in the healing benefits of these plants threatens their survival. As these ancestral plants continue to come out of the jungle to be shared with the West, the dire need to plant and replant these medicines becomes more and more apparent. So we invite you to join us in planting magic and leaving a legacy for the future generations so that these medicines continue to accompany humanity for many years to come. Visit Magic Fund Amazon to learn more and to join the movement. Thank you so much, Alison, for joining us today. I'm so excited to have this conversation and to get to drop in with you and to get to share your beautiful medicine and wisdom with our listeners and our community. So it's a real pleasure and honor to have you on the show, and I just want to give you a warm welcome.
Thank you for that warmth. I felt the warmth from you and your spirit before you articulated it in human words, but I will take both doses of warmth. It feels good to be honored in the receiving to join you on your podcast. And I love that I'm here in Texas and you're down there in Costa Rica, and we're just pinging back and forth from these locations.
Mm. So beautiful. Thank God for technology and the amazing blessing it is to be able to connect and have these powerful conversations from all over the world. So, such a beautiful time we're living in. And yeah, it's special, special that we get to do this today.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the many prongs in this modern day that allow these conversations and weavings to happen differently than ever before. So yeah, it is beautiful.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Beautiful. So I would love to start with a little introduction to you for those of our listeners who may not be familiar with your work. And perhaps you could also include a little bit of your journey to the animal kingdom and what that path was like for you, because that will be kind of the focus of our conversation today.
Great. Yeah, I feel with you and the Soul Fam community that is with us today. I will actually make my journey explanation quite succinct and just offer up the invitation if someone wants to get into the minutia, because it can be a very long story, because my path to having my divine intervention was spanned many years. And so just know, if you go to my Ceremony Circle podcast and other places, there are interviews where I go into every detail, but I feel instantly called to kind of whittle that down, so we can maybe get into the heart and meat of some other areas. So let me just tune in to what wants to be shared. Yeah, the first thing coming in is a phrase that I coined many years ago that I just love to speak to, because it's so fitting and a perfect explanation for my pre-awakening way of life. And I think it really resonates with a lot of other people. And the phrase is, I don't know why it makes me laugh, but it's winning but lost. And the reason it's so perfect is because my upbringing was very entrenched in pretty extreme pressure to always win and always be the best. And it began in the realm of athletics. My father, who I love dearly and wouldn't change a thing about my journey, he was also my distance running coach. And so before I was even 3 years old, he put me in my first road race. So my first competition, I'm like 2.5, have these little Nike, I think they were, blue Nike racing shoes and a little pink nice Nike racing suit on. And thus began this beginning of this incredibly pressurized identity that would formulate as I would end up becoming, the best distance runner in this entire country more than one time. And then I would get a scholarship to be an athlete at the University of Alabama, where I was a history making athlete. And there was all of that going on. And I mean, I'm still to this day, I haven't been able to run for probably, oh my goodness, I'm 44 now. So, gosh, I probably haven't been able to run for, minimum 15 years, probably closer to 20 years, because it was so intense. And I was a distance runner, oftentimes training 2, sometimes 3 times a day. So yeah, I kind of paint that picture to just let the medicine of just how strong that identity was start to take shape. And then at some point, my body could not withstand all of that, and it began to break down. And it was toward the end of my college career that all of that started to crumble. And that was really one of the only identities I knew. I mean, everywhere I would go, it was, oh, there's Alison, that runner girl, or, the whispers of like, who I was. And as my body started to break down, and I had a stress fracture in my femur, and I was on crutches for 6 months, and I had knee surgery, and all of these things happening, kidney stones started to release in my body. And I thought, okay, if I can't do this running thing anymore, then what do I do and who am I? And so those were the initial crumblings of those egoic layers. And I started to get shifted into the world of media, because after college, I moved to Florida. And as I was a personal trainer in a gym, one of my clients came in the gym one day and said, "You should really be my radio show co-host." And so even though I knew from a very young age, I could see visions of media. I could see myself being, with a mic or on set in studio, but I just didn't know exactly how. And so that piece of my journey started to come in. And so I was an AM talk host in Florida, and then I got hired to be an FM morning show host at a hip hop station. And so this other part of me started to open up and emerge. But then I started to, after many years doing all of that, and again with a theme of winning but lost, like I ended up that morning show, I was, it was the top rated morning show, and we were reaching, thousands or millions of people. And that was another, layer that started to reveal to me, more subtly guiding me to my awakening, because I thought, wow, we're reaching millions of people, but what are we really doing? And what are we really talking about? Because there was a lot of, it was back in the day, the typical vibe of those morning shows. It was just kind of chaotic, it was kind of rambunctious and, wild stories and sound effects. And, even the context of some of the music, not all of it, but some of the music and the guests, it was, could be kind of hardcore. And thus, I decided I needed to leave that realm. I moved to New York City, and I'll tighten up the story even more. But it was when I was living in New York City that I had my whole life changer, game changer, snap of the finger moment in time that happened, where I had a simultaneous divine intervention, spiritual awakening moment. And I should also note that woven amongst my time as an athlete and then my time in media, radio, and also television when I moved to New York City, I was also in a 16 and a half year relationship journey with a previous partner. And it was really those through line medicines happening in that previous romantic relationship that ended up being the primary catalyst for requiring the divine intervention. I just could not seem to pluck myself out of these cycles of insanity, abuse, turmoil, anguish, panic attacks, autoimmune disorders, kidney stones. I think at this point I've passed like 7 kidney stones, and the kidneys and a lot of traditions represent fear. And so I think it was my body's way of trying like hell to metabolize and process all the fear I had been entrenched in, both with the pressure of being an athlete and then also in that relationship. And so there was a lot going on. I think you can understand why I try to bring that story down as tight as I can, because so much brought me to that day in Brooklyn where my clairaudient gift turned on, and I was given some divine instructions from spirit that led me to finally having my Joseph Campbell quote moment: "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek." And the cave I feared to enter was finally getting out of the denial and illusion and seeing the truth of that relationship, the abuse, the addictions at play, the codependency on my end. And that really lifted the veil in a pretty hardcore but miraculous way. And it was after that day in Brooklyn that I finally surrendered and finally got into a path of devotion, committing to getting out of my own way. And the animal guides were actually the first guides who came in to support me in that process. And we have just worked together every single day for more than a decade now. So I'll take a breath and see where you want to guide things from here. But that was part of the pathway leading me to who I really am.
Hmm. I love it. Thank you so much for that eloquence with which you share your story, because it really always fills me with so much joy to get to hear people's journeys of that moment when everything turns on and the veil, like you said, lifts, and we're able to get out of our own way and tap into the greater force of life that is awaiting us and ready to bless us and illuminate our lives. And what a beautiful journey you have been on, and makes me even more excited to get to dig deeper in this conversation and get to hear more of the medicine that you have cultivated over the last decade, and what has come forth from this bravery that was required to listen to your heart and to open up wider to the force of life and everything that it contained for you.
Mm. Thank you for honoring the bravery piece, because that's definitely been one that I most deeply revere and honor myself for, is the courage required so far, millions of miles beyond the level of courage that you even knew that you could dive into within yourself. It's like if somebody were to ask me, show with your arms the widest possible levels of courage that you think it would be possible to muster. And I would go as far as I could. And then the level that I've had to go is infinitely beyond that. So,
Mm.
and because you can see that in me, that obviously says that you have traversed similar waters. But I do think that it's important for those honoring pieces to be spoken, because it's not an easy path. And yes, I would not change a millisecond of it. And it's brought me, miracles so far beyond my wildest dreams as well. But I feel really proud of the way that I have devoted myself to this path and this calling, and really proud of the way that I have chosen to navigate it. So, yeah, bravery, whew, bravery for sure.
Mm. Mhm. And it continues to be a requirement, right? I mean, so many people say to me, or they admire the work that we're doing or people are doing in the world who are choosing to do it. And they say that we're doing it with so much grace. And I always say it's the hardest thing ever, right? Because even if it looks easy or it looks like something that someone might doubt in themselves to ever be able to do, we also have that doubt. Anyone who's really doing the work has that same doubt that they are constantly overcoming and constantly choosing to have faith in something greater than themselves. And it doesn't go away just because we say yes, right? In fact, it can get stronger and get deeper and deeper, these layers, and require more and more courage, more and more strength and spiritual fortitude. And so, yeah, I always like to, say that if someone's seeing that in someone else, it's because that inner spark, that belief, self belief, is there to be able to do that work, and we all have that. But to say that it's easy is it's a false belief on many levels.
Yes, the responsibilities, that was the main word that came in as you were just sharing. The
Mm.
responsibilities are aplenty. They are abound when one finally finally gives the true soul calling room to activate, open, communicate to us, start to, yeah, flourish and inform us. And I live in a path of true surrender and devotion and willingness to allow myself, my calling and spiritual gifts to evolve in the exact pacing and way that the divine wants them to, and in the way that will serve both my highest, greatest earthly good and the highest, greatest earthly good of all. And so it's like when I can feel a massive up leveling, or, even recently in the last week, I've just really been shown some threads and some particles of some outdated narrative energetics that really it's time to put them to bed and put them to rest. And it's like, okay, if I'm willing to close the door on those perspectives, then obviously you can feel there's a pivot to a different threshold and a different gateway that opens up. And with all of these, I mean, that's just one example of a trillion different ways that this path can start to maneuver and navigate you. And then with all of the shifts and initiations and rites of passage and threshold crossings, therein reveals different types of responsibilities that come with your enhanced, evolved, more deeply embodied gifts. And so it's a it's a wild process of, I choose, not all shamans and not all spiritual teachers and guides do this, but I require of myself at all times to do my absolute best to be as consciously aware as I can. And one thing that I have noticed, my husband and I, we moved to the Austin area a couple of years ago, and I'm so blessed to be in this community because I've never been more aligned with fellow humans and fellow spiritual earth walkers that I am right now. And one thing that I've noticed with the type of friends and community that I'm now with, it requires the highest level of conscious awareness and integrity and embodiment than I've ever had to require of myself before, because that's where they're also the people I run in a very small circle, but the people that are in my small circle, they're navigating and attuned similarly to me. And you can't sleepwalk around friends like that because you'll fuck up the relationship, or, and it's okay. Like, we all trust the way one another walks the path. So it's not like we don't allow a human aspect to show. And sometimes there may be a shadow component that in a certain dynamic needs to present. It's not like we're not allowing those things, but the second those particles show up, you better believe you need to be on it, and you need to be bringing that piece to the forefront and allowing it, expressing to your friends like, oof, oh, that thing is here now. Like, but I'm with it, and and I'm going to work on it. So yeah, there are a lot of responsibilities that come to saying yes to this infinite evolutionary path, for sure.
Mm. I love it. It's so good when we can have those friendships and spiritual community that serve as a catalyst for our growth. What a blessing that you've created that for yourself. And I know that that is a prayer for many of us on the spiritual path, to be around people that can help us sustain that frequency, that prayer, that vibration, and hold us accountable, right? We need those people. We need those people that help us and call us forth into action to be the highest version of ourselves and to really step up to the plate, right? And not just be that person when everyone's looking either, but be that person when no one is. So
Mm.
that's a beautiful thing, and yeah, it's exciting. I would love to ask you to share a little bit more about the way that your relationship with the animals has developed, and to go into a little bit more for us who are tuning into this conversation of what that looked like for you, of the different processes that you've gone into with cultivating your relationship with the animal kingdom, as well as how the animals have been allies and guides to you, and how they have been your teachers and your friends and your companions in this evolutionary journey.
Oh my goodness, yes. It's such a rich voyage having the power animal realm so intimately with me every single day. Just taking a moment to fully honor them and send some reverence and love to all of them. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, yeah, as I mentioned, right after I had that awakening day in Brooklyn, I flew back to Indiana, where I'm originally from, and I stayed in my grandmother's home for quite a while. I think I was there for a few months, just trying to process more fully my life being turned upside down. And I was having additional awakenings on a daily basis, sometimes a multiple time per day basis, where I was just being shown so much about who I am and what I needed to heal. And so the four animals that really came through right away, the first one ended up showing itself to be my core power animal. So uh, f- from what I have experienced and the way that I teach is that we are all assigned this a core power animal that incarnates with us when we come into the earth plane, and that core power animal is with us every single moment of every single day of our earth walk. And then there are any infinite number of what I call supporter animal allies that can show up, reveal, try to get our attention along our journey, depending upon what we're navigating in life. If we've got heartbreak, maybe deer will show up. And I'll give an example of how deer has been one of those supporter through line animals for me. If you've got a really intense business meeting coming up, maybe you want to work with rhinoceros medicine. And that's one of the reasons, and I'll tell more context of how Animal Power Book and Animal Power Deck came to be. But I feature in the book 100 different animals, and they each have their own full page of embodied, vibrant, colored artwork. And then on the opposite page, there are an explanation for the energy medicine that every animal embodies and represents, and then messages that they share to you, and then a power practice. Because one thing in all of my years of, I've guided power animal shamanic journeys for audiences of more than 10,000 people, and sometimes in really intimate ceremonies as well. But a question that would often present, they would meet these animals on these journeys and have time to receive medicine from them and ask questions. And then when the journey would be done, people would be like, and now what? And so with each animal, I created a power practice, which is a ritual or a ceremony that you can do to continue that conversation and continue the cultivation of awareness and rapport with each animal in their own unique way. And so the black jaguar came in as my core power animal guide, and then the bear, the deer, and the frog. So that quadrant of power animals all rushed in. And I'll give a brief example. The black jaguar for me was a time of reclamation of spiritual gifts and spiritual truth. And also, she has incredibly deep prowess when it comes to doing shadow work and really doing it in a comprehensive, integrity filled way. And those were two main pieces, especially in the beginning, that I needed to devote to. And then the frog, God bless the frog medicine. To our knowledge as humans, we've never had a frog that's ever leapt backwards, right? The frogs are a deep medicine of taking leaps of faith and only leaping forward. And that was a primary medicine I needed, because part of the reason I couldn't get out of that 16 and a half year previous relationship, despite all of the, abuse and anguish, I was entrenched in that cycle of insanity. And so I needed that frog embodiment to not allow me to look back and go back again for the umpteenth time, and to take that true leap of faith into the realm of surrender. And then the deer medicine, my awakening came through extreme betrayal and heartbreak. And the deer is the path of the heart. And so she would come in and just remind me that as much as I wanted to just completely shut my heart chambers down and, put a blanket over my beautiful glowing heart chakra, she just told me every day, like, it's not who you are, and just trust in the medicine of keeping your heart open, despite how painful this part of your process is. If you can just keep your heart open, she would promise me that it will all be worth it in the end. And what's so beautiful is now in this home that I sit in, that I own with my husband, we have deer that visit us every single day. And they come into our front yard and they'll come super, super close to us. And I toss berries and apples and fruits into our front yard to just, keep letting them know that they're welcome here. But it's so cool that they show up every single day in our home. And the other really cool thing was that in working with Sacred Grandfather Medicine Peyote, which is probably the one that I have sat with the most, and also probably the one I have the most ancient, revered connection with. The main animal totem for peyote is Kayumari, the sacred blue deer. And it was actually in a very spontaneous and unexpected 2-night peyote ceremony that Luke and I, my husband, became a couple. We went to this ceremony on our third date, and we had definitely not even come close to being intimate yet. And we were friends before, but this was just our third date, and we emerged from that TP a couple. And so it's the deer has played a huge integral role and me trusting and keeping my heart open, and now being in this beautiful relationship. And then the bear was my main guide in learning surrender. It would come to me in my meditations, and the bear would sit with its back up against a tree, and it would invite me to sit into its lap and to learn. It would just urge me to let go and lean back more and lean back more and trust more. And it got me adept to those energetics of fully releasing into the arms of the divine and knowing that I'm always held, and to trust that way. So yeah, I mean, that was the birthing nucleus of these relationships. But over, more than 10, 12, 13, I don't know how many years at this point of me working so intimately with them, what happened was our trust with each other and our communication line with each other. Oh, my dog, speaking of all the animals, let me let her in really quick. She wants to join. She loves podcast
Okay.
time.
Fun.
You want to come in? Come on in, sweetie. This is Cookie.
Hi, Cookie.
She's a
What a
little
cutie
sweetheart.
pie.
She's a little healer dog. She gives lots of hot tongue spas, I call them, little tongue baths. Yeah. She's got
Aw.
sweetheart medicine.
She wants to
And she,
accompany us in this conversation.
yeah. And yeah, she has sat in many ceremonies as well with us.
Mm.
But yeah, what ensued was the trust just growing and growing between myself going to the power animals, trusting that they would show up, and them trusting me to be a true voice for them. And so one example would be, I would do these big events. I lived in New York City for about 14 years, and I worked with a lot of big brands bringing, shamanic teachings and consciousness to places that had been absent from for a very long time, especially in New York. And I would get up on stage, and in front of incredibly large audiences, and then, call people that wanted to come up on stage, and they would be willing and excited to have a live power animal reading. And so, I like to share that example because imagine, I'm up there with someone and there's, hundreds or thousands of people watching. And as I'm tuning in, I have to trust, that the animals aren't going to just be lollygagging around and leaving me hanging as I'm up there doing these live readings for people. And, they need to trust me that I'm not going to distort the message that they're trying to convey. And the end part of this answer is how that showed up with the book specifically. I had been, approached by a lot of different literary agents and publishers. Words somehow organically got around New York City pretty quick that, I was doing this work. And I think also, the fact that I'm a woman shaman and the fact that I come from the Midwest and have this like relatable background, I think for a lot of people, that was an enticing energy to lean into. And so I was having these invitations to write my first book, and I took those meetings over like more than 3 years, and I could not get clear on what to write my book on, which was very strange because I've always been a writer ever since I was a young girl. And I just obviously had to trust the divine timing. But fast forward 3.5 years on that exploratory path, I finally lined up with my agents who I loved. And then in meeting with them, we all thought we had nailed it. I'm going to write a book on surrender because that was the key piece for me. I'm going to teach people what surrender really means, how to do it. And then I flew to Bali to write that book on surrender. And in my first morning meditation, all the animal guides flooded in. They all were right there. So the second I closed my eyes to meditate, and they were all saying, nope, that is not the book. It's a nice idea, cute idea and all, but you are to write a modern day power animal guidebook with us. So, in living by the calls and the irony, right, that the book was on surrender and I had to just surrender that and let it go. And thankfully, my team was on board with this switch. And then I worked on this book and deck for a number of years. So, all in all, from the time I started to take book meetings to the time Animal Power book and deck were physically born out into the world, it was like an 8-year journey. So, it was, and no shade to people that have ghostwriters, whatever people choose is their path and what is best for them. But I definitely personally and with the animals poured every fiber of love and purity and devotion into both of these projects.
Mm. Thank you so much for sharing. It's very authentic just hearing your own personal journey and how the animals, first and foremost, showed up for you and accompanied you in your healing journey. And then the process of what it meant to deepen in your dialogue with them, deepen in your relationship with them, talking a lot about that trust. Which is really beautiful because it's so important and big when it comes to sharing these messages from the animal kingdom with other people. It requires this fortitude, this strength of communication with them, where there is that trust both ways, right? And so, on that note, I'm curious, have you ever gotten messages from the animals that have been hard to trust or
Mm.
hard to accept, whether for yourself or for someone else that you were working with? And did the messages keep coming and keep being brought to
Mm.
you in different forms until you got the lesson?
Yes, and yes, and yes, and yes to all of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, one I had a few things blip in that I'll share. During the time that I was really in the heart of promoting the book, I was on a really big national radio show called Coast to Coast AM. And I mean, it's been around for ages, uh, and it's a spiritual show. One of the main hosts is a man named George Norrie, and he also hosts a show on Gaia television called Beyond Belief. And I was just up in the Gaia studios last month, being interviewed for that show. But this particular show, this Coast to Coast AM, it's an overnight talk radio show, and so. I decided, so at that time we were renovating the home that I'm sitting in now, and we were living in a temporary apartment that, was much smaller. And I knew I was going to need to be up and full of energy and expression around 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And I didn't want to do that in the apartment and wake my husband up. So I got a hotel room nearby at a nearby place. And so you can just picture me. I'm sitting in the little living room portion of my hotel room with my shamanic tools, and I had to set an alarm to wake myself up at like 2:30 in the morning to go live. This is a live show with live listeners who call in, and yeah, there was definitely, the theme, they were interviewing me, but then there was also a good portion of, I think I was on for at least an hour and a half, where I was also taking callers. And yeah, there was one woman, bless her heart. And I mean, this portion of what I'm about to say has already been public. It was already on air, so I'm not sharing anything out of sacred space. But yeah, when she was an older woman, I feel like her name might have been Betty, and the message for her was around her long-term marriage and just how it was not serving her anymore and not in alignment, but she was really terrified, and I can relate because my journey was entrenched in a lot of those same medicines. But yeah, she was just too scared to face the truth. And I also think scared at the idea of starting anew, starting again at that latter stage in life. And I have to give her a lot of credit. As the messages were coming in, I knew I needed to be honest. And at the same time, I also have to have this awareness that we are doing a live radio show. And with my radio and TV background, you have to have the hat of awareness of time, and so I'm having to be consciously aware and dialing into a lot of aspects of what I'm doing. I'm needing to listen in real time to the animal and what it's urging me to convey to her. I'm needing to make sure that from my throat chakra and my heart chakra that I'm bringing in the essences that I most want to be expressing this message from, so that it's blanketed with pure divine love, and so that it can be best hopefully received by her, and so that her defenses don't go up and reject what the animals are trying to say. And I'm also being mindful of time. And so that was one where it was tough, and especially in that dynamic. If you're in a ceremony space doing a one-on-one healing session, there's a lot more grace and space to figure out at what point in the 2-hour ceremony you want to tell this person this message. But when you're live on radio and telling a woman that her marriage needs to end, that brings a whole other texture of things. And then for me, personally, the animal and story that flashed in was the vulture. Ooh, yes. Oh, vulture. I would probably have to say, alongside black jaguar, vulture has probably been the biggest power animal guide in medicine that I have needed to learn and embody. And vulture has brought so much with it and continues to do so to this day. Even in this last week, I was reconciling some aspects of that. I'm even burping right now, clearing out some stuff because the vulture is the purifier, and the cycles of death and rebirth. And they're the cleanup crew. The vultures go in to the dead aspects, the parts of, a person or a business or the part of anything. And it reveals what is no longer working. It reveals what needs to die off. And it will pick. Just the other week, our neighbors, when we were turning the corner to come back home, in this corner lot right up here, there was a dead deer laying in their yard, and there were approximately 15 vultures, working that dead deer. And my husband and I just parked our car, and with reverence and honor, I just watched. I just observed, because I gained so much medicine and teaching from watching the dynamic of how do the vultures clean up? What area of the deer are they entering into? The workings even of the vultures amongst themselves, of keeping space, and the sound and the medicine transmission from their giant wings flapping. That I from that 15 minutes of watching that whole scene, I'm still processing and integrating the teachings that they gave to me. So I share all that to say that the vulture medicine that I am and that I embody, I actually want to try to share it in a new way today, because I'm ready to embody it and be an expression with my vulture carrying that is in a way that is lighter And because before it has felt very exhaustive and laborious, and it has felt like at times an anguishing chore, if I'm completely honest. Knowing that I carry this medicine when I go even into a party or what is a lighthearted gathering, what I embody with the vulture medicine, it can just go into someone and just put like a spotlight. Just from me walking into a room, it can put a spotlight onto someone's, an area within someone, a behavior, a shadow aspect that they haven't seen. And depending upon that person's level of conscious awareness, how deep they are on the path, oftentimes my presence can be triggering to people. And if that person isn't watching, that can easily turn into projection or narratives about me. And so it's been a lot to reconcile that I am someone in the community and in the world that can reveal to people what needs to be cleaned up and what needs to be purified. And that often does not equate to quote unquote easy conversations. So yeah, that was the animal story that came in for me personally.
Wow, that was a good one. Thank you so much. I loved that. There are so many beautiful pieces there that I'd love to expand on and touch on more. One thing that really came in strongly as you were sharing about the way in which you were observing the vulture is this medicine of observation. Because I think a lot of people who are listening already have a profound relationship with nature and animals. And one of the questions I think will be present for our listeners is how do we deepen our relationships with the power animals? And I think you just answered it in a really beautiful way. And you might have more to expand in a minute, but this power of observation and opening our eyes to the rhythms of nature and learning from the incredible teachers that are all around us. It's such a beautiful way to really attune to the messages and the medicine simply by observing the way that animals act in the wild, in nature, the way in which they care for their young, the way in which that they, their wild, their savage natures come out, all the ways in which that they react to life those are the teachings, right? And so simply by observing, I think that was one of the main teachings you just gave to me, reminders you just gave to me in that sharing. And so that was really potent. I want to thank you for that. And the other part that really resonated strong, which I would maybe like to expand a little bit more, is this process of embracing the dark parts or embracing the parts that maybe aren't so comfortable, and what it means when there is a totem or an animal teacher that is coming to teach us things that maybe isn't the hummingbird or maybe isn't the butterfly, right? And so oftentimes there's an ease or a grace with those lighter power animals, and then there's like this uncomfortability or this wanting to shy away from those more scarier or quote unquote darker animals that we have those negative connotations to.
Yeah.
And so I would love to ask if you would to expand a little bit on that. One animal that people love to hear about that I also love to talk about is the owl. And I know that this one also carries the light and the dark. And I would love to hear maybe your wisdom on the owl, as well as just in general, this process of working with those animal spirits that maybe have, darker messages for us, or messages that have more mysterious codings within them that maybe are not so one-sided, that have these multi-layers and multifacets to them, and how to work with them.
Yeah, I love that you took it over there. That's beautiful. Yeah, because especially for anyone newer to communing with the power animal guides, and I should note on my website, AlysonCharles.com, on the page that features my book, I think it's AlysonCharles.com/animal power. There is a free video guided shamanic journey that I guide with my drum that's available to anyone. And you can call forward your current present power animal, and I give you the opportunity to connect, receive medicine, all the good things. But when I provide these experiences for people, I think potentially, because in all my years doing this work, I am, because of that relatability within me. Have met a lot of people where I'm the first shaman they've ever met, or especially the first shaman they've ever worked with. And after the journey, I've heard a lot throughout the years, like, oh gosh, like it was spider, like, I'm freaked out, or snake. Snake will elicit fear like no other. When that
Mhm.
highest awakening intelligence of that snake and needing to shed off that old skin, when the snake medicine comes a slithering in, people want to oftentimes go running. And I love that we're in this nucleus of the conversation, because I want to invite everyone, especially if you're newer to this work, to just trust. There are no quote unquote bad power animals. There are no,
Mhm.
even with your journeys, and even if in the midst of the journey, or if you're someone who has a really clear and adept meditation practice where simply, a second after closing your eyes, if the intention you set for your morning meditation at your altar is to invite in a power animal who has a message for you, even upon presentation, if you feel, a wave or a layer of some chill inducing medicine, or something that feels big, deep, I just invite you to trust and to just stay with it. And I think the key is just remaining curious. Just remember, you are an explorer. You are an explorer of divinity. You are an explorer of your own soul. And you cannot go wrong when you are in those parameters. And so, one flash thing I wanted to share, back to that dead deer and the 15 or so vultures. It was fascinating for me to see the vast majority of the vultures were all in the anus. They were all pulling and extracting the organs out of the rear end of the deer. And in me telling this, please know I'm not at all attempting to be crass or in any sort of unhonoring. It's just, I'm trying to just be honest. Like, for me, I needed to see that. It was like this huge needed reminder for me, from my dear vulture friends, of like, yeah, Alison, you get into the shit. Like, you are someone who has been gifted the capabilities of getting into the shitty shit of some matters, and to getting into, yeah, what some people would, turn their face up the most to, like the smelliest, stinkiest aspects of some folks, but you know how to do it, and you know how to bring love with it. And then another example, bat medicine and leech. Those are two huge stories from my own personal journey. Bat was with me for probably about 3 years, and that's another one that can elicit those darker feelings for people. And bat will take you into those caves that hold your deepest, darkest fears, and it will, in the fiercest but yet most loving way, like force you to face those fears, so that you can have a true rebirth moment. It teaches you, like the way that bat is depicted in my book, it's the only animal that's like, it's upside down, and it teaches you how to navigate with grace and efficiency, even when you feel like your life is being turned upside down. And oh my goodness, that 3-year journey with bat, there were definitely times where I was just like, it just kept relentlessly showing up, and I could feel its love, but the intensity of the lessons and the intensity of the relentlessness. There were for sure times where I was kind of like, okay, enough already, for real already. Like, I get it. Don't I get it? And that would show up again. So ultimately I trusted, and I never would really truly shun bat away. But there were some tiring times. And then with the leech, I knew when I was living in Brooklyn, I had this very loud call to get leech therapy done. And I had never seen a leech in real life. I had, a connotation of them being slimy and creepy and gross and, making those facial expressions that one does when you think of something that's like slimy and icky. And yet I knew I needed to face that and go do it. And there's a video of me up on YouTube like a decade ago doing this. And you can see the massive alchemy. Like they to this day are the most profound teacher of alchemical process, because I showed up to that leech therapist's office at complete fear and seeing all of these hundreds of leeches, and then watching, going through the process of the leech therapist attaching them to above my liver and feeling. I mean, imagine, and if someone has had this experience, you know what I'm talking about. Like there's kind of no greater communing and transference of understanding of one another than when a leech is literally attached to you and pulling from you the toxins and the lymph that need to release from you, and simultaneously injecting into you. And they're attached with hundreds and hundreds of teeth, and then injecting into you, these different healing enzymes. You become at one with these creatures. And I ended up feeling such reverence and just crying over the healing love that I felt they hold and that they were giving to me. And so yeah, those are some stories there. And then for Owl, let's see. Let me just tune in to Owl. The first thing, I'll just kind of take this in bits and pieces. I'll see what it wants to say, and then I'll say it, and then I'll go back in. So the first thing, the reminder from Owl was its ability to, what it looks to be, is to rotate its head in a near 360-degree way. It's not fully going 360 degrees, but that's what it oftentimes looks like. And it was this reminder from Owl, its teachings of not being afraid to be at one with it all, not being afraid to look at it all, not being afraid to be in relation to all. Because I think if you boil it down and just keep reducing down, like, what is potentially a biggest teaching that we humans have in life, and what could potentially be the biggest theme that keeps people stuck, that keeps people stifled from living their true calling, from experiencing the full richness of life. It would be the fear of really looking, feeling it all, the allness, the totality. Excuse me. And so Owl really comes in with that reminder of every single person walking this planet, we all have the ability to know how to be at one with the totality of this earth walk. And you just have to trust, if you're willing to peer back into that corner that for the last decade you've been too scared to peer back into, what has felt like that scary gremlin that's been lurking back there. When you finally tuck your eyesight back and let that, what feels like to be that scary dark energy and that gremlin, come forward, when you start to converse with it and get to know it, it's actually not scary. It's actually just been there trying to be a helpful guide. But because you've been denying its existence, it has felt scary. And once you start to talk to it, you'll see that it's been trying to help you in some way all along. And every time you do and act like that, your self-trust gets cultivated more and more. And I think it's just one of the hugest keys in life is becoming embodied with the trust that you can healthily experience the full spectrum of human emotions and healthily experience the full spectrum of earthly experiences. And let me see what other piece. Yeah, the shedding of illusion coming in with owl medicine. And there's one other thing. Let me see. Yeah, the other piece it was bringing in is just the stigmas around psychic abilities, because Owl is definitely a big embodied teacher of psychic gifts, psychic abilities, seership. And let me see what it's wanting to say about that. Yeah, it's the classic story of people suppressing, their own experience and their own abilities, because sometimes what can happen when a flash of a prophecy or your clairvoyance or whatever psychic gift is trying to come more online, more activated within you. I've seen it countless times, and being on this journey, people will have an experience, whether it's in dream time or waking state, of their own abilities revealing themselves, and it frightens them, and then they go into like completely stifling that gift. And so I feel the owl is presenting itself as your guardian, your ally, your guide that you can invite forward if you are a person listening who has had that experience, or maybe you're even sitting at that precipice point, that threshold gateway point of wanting to commit to getting to know your own gifts, your psychic gifts, and letting them open up even more. Invite Owl in to be a guardian for you in that space, and to potentially teach you and show you the next steps that you can take to safely allow, in a good pace that's right for you, allow your psychic gifts to come alive again.
Oh, thank you so much for those messages and beautiful insights. I've enjoyed getting to observe the way that you are really connecting in and receiving these messages. It's been a real gift and a pleasure. So thank you for sharing this with all of us.
You're welcome.
And on that note, I'm really excited that you have offered and agreed to share a little meditation with us, a channeling with us to complete this session, and invite everyone to open their hearts and receive this beautiful medicine that Alison has to share with us.
Yeah, so I'm just going to see. Before we even started to do this interview, I'm completely anchored with honor and divinity into Great Mother Earth, Mama Gaia, and also in the same way connected into center point of source consciousness, Great Spirit, and also into my own human and shamanic heart, the divine wisdom, love, light, power, and truth that is me and lives within me. And so from this pure divine space, I will just surrender fully into it again now, and open the gateway to allow this pure divine space to reveal to me a message, some medicine or guidance that most wishes to be shared to serve the highest, greatest earthly good. So I have no idea what or who will come through, but just give me a moment and I will share. The first place I was taken to was a really, really high cliffside in what appears to be Wales or Ireland. Or maybe it's even, I learned recently some of my lineage comes from the island of Lewis off of Scotland. It actually could even be there. And it shows, yeah, it's so powerful and emotional. This beautiful woman standing atop the edge of this really, really high cliffside with the ocean moving and crashing below. And let me see what the message is here with this. It's saying that the new paradigm energies are with you. They are here. They have arrived. And it's showing that there are a lot of people, potentially even a lot of folks that are joining and listening with us now, that the vision of the woman was the top half of her is leaning over. She's leaned over the cliff, but yet her toes, especially her big toe and her second toe, are still like grasping as much as they can and firmly planted as much as they can into that cliff energy. And so the message is that it is safe and it is time now to release that last tether line and to let go into these new spaces, to let go into getting out of that relationship that you know in your heart of hearts is not to the fullest expression or the fullest truth of divine union that you want to experience this lifetime, to let go of that last tethered line that you've been holding on to with another, like a family relationship dynamic that you know needs to be alchemized or pivoted. I feel like there's one other example it wants to show. 1 second. Just into all these new ways of being. It just feels like there are so many people specifically at this point. And it's also, I'm sure, no coincidence that I know this was not airing live today, but we're recording it on the literal, eclipse new moon day, which is this very catalytic precipice point of great transformation and change. And I feel this picture and this invitation of allowing this catalytic transformational change to happen, to really happen, and this reminder of trust that these new paradigm energies are holding you. They're fully there. They will be guiding you. I think there's one last piece to this message, though. 1 second. Yeah, the giraffe just came in, and it's just like this reminder too, you're not going to lose your way. You're not going to lose your footing. You're not going to drift off into space, into some place that you're not going to know what to do with, or it's this expansion into these higher realms, these higher planes of existence and higher places of getting to know yourself. It might feel like a stretch. That's what the giraffe is showing. I mean, just picture this super, super tall giraffe with those really, really long, gangly legs and that stretched out neck. And the giraffe's head is poked out right into this new realm, this new space that you have never met before now. But its hooves, its feet are still on earth plane. It's time for this stretch and it's time for this leap, and you will be held. And if someone needs a practical ritual or practice when this interview wraps, just close your eyes and take your earthing cord into Great Mother Earth, call in giraffe, and let giraffe show you this place in life that is beckoning you to let those toe grips go on, to let yourself fully release off the cliffside into those waters of new higher consciousness, new paradigm places that you're ready to explore. And let giraffe walk you to what that place is in life. Is it a relationship? Is it a career shift? Is it a living in a different place on planet Earth? Let her walk you to the place in life that is ready for this new way of being. Aho. And thank you, giraffe, and thank you to the cliffside, and thank you to the ocean waters, and thank you to those pure divine gateways that commune with me. Amen. Let that toe grip go. It's like, God, that's the key. And so I can feel so many people are at that place. They're just like, those two little toes are just like, it's like, let it go. Let it go.
What a beautiful reminder. Thank you, my sister. I loved it. You're awesome. This is so fun. And thank you for sharing all of it today. It was a super beautiful, fun journey for me. And I learned a lot. And it was just beautiful to get to receive you into this space. And thank you so much for showing up and being willing to do this today.
Thank you for being so honoring. And thank you for the path you have said yes to and continue to walk. And you're doing so many beautiful things. So yeah, it's nice to close out with honoring one another and honoring all those joining us.
Beautiful. Well, we will be including links to your book, your website, your social media links in the show notes. And if anyone feels called to learn more about the animal power wisdom, Alison is an incredible guide and vehicle to deepen into this wisdom. So highly recommend checking out all of her incredible resources. And thank you for sharing them with all of us and for doing the work that you're doing in the world. Many blessings to your path and to all those who are listening today.
Thank you. Can I say one last thing? I'm not sure when this will air, and it might air. It just pinged in to be spoken, but I'm potentially doing, so my podcast is called Ceremony Circle. And one of the initial visions when that name was given to me many years ago was it's Ceremony Circle is much more than just the podcast. It's live workshops and retreats and all the things. And, it's looking like here in Austin at the end of June, I will be welcoming Dogon High Priest Naba Irata Shenmira, who has been on Ceremony Circle podcast. His lineage is so rich and so ancient. His father was Master Naba. He has since passed on, but his father spoke 13 different languages and was the highest ordained priest in that lineage and was the only prophet in the lineage given permission to take their West African initiations and ancient Kemetic teachings to the globe, and especially over here in the West. And so it's looking like I will be doing a Ceremony Circle live event, workshop day in person here in Austin at the end of June with Dogon Naba. So I just wanted to speak that out in case this episode comes out before the end of June, for people to maybe go to my Instagram, I am Alyson Charles, or go to my website and explore if that in fact did come to fruition. I feel like it probably will. So we invite you to sit with us and learn these origin seed ways that come from the Dogon lineage in Africa soon.
Thank you so much for that invitation. Yes, prayers for that to come into fruition, and my team will follow up with you to see if we can also include the event info in the show notes.
Thank you so much.
God bless you.
You
Thank
too.
you so much.
You too, sister.
From everyone at the Four Visions Market family, we would like to thank you for listening to our podcast. We really hope that you've enjoyed the conversation and gained many new insights on plant medicines, ancestral wisdom, and much more. Please remember to visit our website at www.fourvisionsmarket.com for more resources and information on plant medicine and spiritual tools. And please don't forget to follow us across social media for regular updates on upcoming episodes. We are grateful for your support and look forward to continuing this path with you all. Until next time, take care, stay present, and stay connected.